The sign above the gas station flickered weakly, its buzzing neon light casting an eerie glow over the empty parking lot. The night was cold, and the wind howled through the desolate landscape, rattling the old metal sign that read, Dale's Gas and Convenience, open 24/7. Ethan stepped out of his rusty sedan, rubbing his hands together to fend off the biting chill. He glanced at his watch, 11:47 p.m. His shift started at midnight. With a resigned sigh, he pulled his hoodie tighter around himself and pushed open the glass door, the bell above it jingling softly. Inside, the place smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, flickering in protest. Dale, the grizzled owner, sat behind the counter, watching a small, outdated TV set perched on the shelf. The local news droned on in the background, reporting something about a missing person, but Dale barely seemed to notice. "You're early," Dale muttered, shifting his weight to sit up. His sunken eyes, rimmed with exhaustion, barely met Ethan's gaze. "Figured I'd get a head start," Ethan replied, setting his backpack behind the counter. "Slow night?" Dale let out a dry chuckle. "Ain't no such thing as a slow night around here, kid. You'll see." Ethan had been working here for about 2 weeks, taking the night shift to save up for college. The job seemed easy enough: stock shelves, man the register, and deal with the occasional late-night traveler. But something about Dale's tone unsettled him. He decided not to press further. Dale stood up, stretching his weary bones. "All right, I'm out. Just remember the rules. Keep the doors locked after 2 a.m., don't go outside no matter what you hear, and whatever you do, if someone asks for the special pump, tell him we're out." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Special pump?" Dale ignored the question, grabbing his coat. "See you at dawn. If you make it?" He flashed a half-smile, but there was no humor behind it. With that, he stepped out into the night, leaving Ethan alone with the hum of the coolers and the flickering lights. The first customer. For the first hour, nothing happened. Ethan scrolled through his phone, barely looking up as the occasional car zoomed past on the highway. At exactly 1:03 a.m., the bell above the door chimed, making him jump. A man stepped in, wearing a tattered brown coat and a wide-brimmed hat that cast a shadow over his face. His fingers, long and bony, tapped rhythmically against the counter as he approached. "You got any supplies?" The man's voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken in days. Ethan cleared his throat. What kind?" The man's lips curled into a dry smile. "The kind you keep in the back." Ethan hesitated. There was nothing special in the storage room, just more chips, soda, and cleaning supplies. "I don't think Dale knows what I'm talking about." The man's eyes, now visible under the hat's brim, were a milky shade of white. Not blind, but a natural. Ethan's heart pounded. He considered calling Dale, but his gut told him not to. Instead, he forced a polite smile. "Sorry, sir. We're all out." The man's smile vanished. He stared at Ethan for a long moment before exhaling sharply. "Shoot. I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe you'll have what I need then." With that, he turned and walked out, the door jingling softly behind him. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The woman at the pump. At 2:37 a.m., Ethan locked the doors, just as Dale instructed. The night outside seemed to stretch infinitely, the surrounding darkness pressing against the glass windows. The security cameras showed nothing but an empty lot. Then, a soft knock echoed from the glass door. Ethan nearly dropped his phone. A woman stood outside, her figure illuminated by the dim glow of the overhead lights. She wore a long, white nightgown, her blonde hair disheveled. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Please, let me in." Ethan hesitated. The rules were clear. No opening the doors after 2 a.m. But she looked terrified, her breath fogging up the glass. He leaned toward the microphone connected to the outdoor speaker. "Miss, are you okay?" She shook her head frantically. "Please, he's coming. You have to let me in." His blood turned to ice. "Who's coming?" Before she could answer, the security camera feed flickered. For a split second, static filled the screens. Then the image returned, and something stood behind her. A tall, shadowy figure loomed just outside the camera's range. Its limbs were unnaturally long, its fingers curling toward the woman's hair like blackened roots reaching for soil. She didn't seem to notice. Ethan's hand hovered over the door lock. Every instinct screamed at him to open it, to help her. But Dale's warning echoed in his mind. The woman's frantic knocking grew weaker. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. The lights above the gas station flickered again. And then, without warning, she was gone. Ethan blinked. One moment she was there, the next, the lot was empty. No sign of her. No sign of the shadow. His breath came in quick gasps. He rewound the security footage, hands trembling. The footage showed the empty lot. No woman. No shadow. Nothing at all. And then, the screen flickered again. For just a second, the camera inside the store glitched, showing a distorted image. Ethan stared, horror creeping up his spine. Because in that brief flash, he saw something standing right behind him. Ethan spun around, heart hammering in his chest, but the store was empty. The aisles stood silent, the hum of the coolers the only sound breaking the stillness. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to breathe. He checked the security footage again. The glitch had passed, but his mind screamed that he had seen something, someone, behind him. The lingering sense of being watched clawed at his nerves. He grabbed the store's landline and dialed Dale's number. The phone rang 3 times before the grizzled voice answered. "Yeah, Dale, something weird just happened. A woman was outside, begging to be let in. Then she disappeared. And I think I saw something on the cameras. Behind me." A long pause. "Lock the doors. Don't move. And don't turn your back on the cameras." Ethan shivered. "What the hell is going on, Dale?" Dale sighed. "You're starting to see it now. That means it's getting closer." A sudden knock shattered the silence, louder this time. A slow, deliberate tap against the glass. Ethan turned and his stomach dropped. Something was looking in at him. The thing at the window was not human. Its face, if it could be called that, was obscured by the reflection of the gas station's flickering lights. But its eyes, deep, hollow voids, cut through the glass, locking onto Ethan's. He couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. A cold sweat prickled his skin as the knocking came again, slower this time. Measured. As if it knew he was trapped inside. The knocking at the glass door grew louder, more insistent. Ethan swallowed, forcing himself to keep his eyes on the security screen. The shadowy figure loomed just outside, shifting unnaturally, as if its body bent at angles impossible for a human. Then, without warning, the front door creaked open. The lock hadn't moved. He had locked it himself. But the door swung open anyway. A wave of cold air swept through the store, and the lights flickered violently. The thing entered. Ethan couldn't move. It glided forward, its hollow eyes fixed on him. He tried to scream, but no sound came. The coolers buzzed loudly, drowning everything else out. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was the creature's hand reaching out. Ethan awoke in the storage room, gasping for breath. The door was shut, and the air was thick with the scent of something old, something rotten. A whisper slithered through the darkness. "You see it now, don't you?" Dale's voice. Ethan turned, his heart pounding. But the man standing before him was not Dale. Grinned. And the lights went out for good. Ethan woke up in the storage room, his breath ragged, his body trembling. The air was thick with a foul, musty scent. He sat up slowly, his head pounding. The lights were dim, barely functioning. A voice whispered from the darkness. "You stayed too long." Ethan turned, and there, standing in the doorway, was Dale. But something was wrong. His skin sagged, his eyes were hollow, and his lips curled into a smile that did not belong to him. What's happening?" Ethan stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "The gas station doesn't just run at night," Dale said, stepping closer. "It feeds." The walls groaned, the shelves trembled, and the shadow that had stalked the outside world was now inside, everywhere. Ethan's screams were swallowed whole as the store consumed him, leaving no trace, no sign that he had ever been there. When dawn broke, the neon sign above Dale's gas and convenience flickered. And a new cashier stood behind the counter.